All right, myself and mic's on. Groovy. All right, well, we're going to kick off. The timing on this presentation we haven't been consistent with, so we want to just get stuck into things. So what we're doing for this particular presentation, this is an amalgam. So we're going to have Microsoft and we're going to have Massey. And what we want to do is we want to try and keep this a bit more real world. This isn't just Microsoft getting up there and talking about the product, promoting the new stuff and kind of dissing the old stuff a wee bit. What we want to do is show you OMS and how Massey use it and the fixes to deliver the benefits that they needed. But what I want to do first of all is just get a feel for what people are using. So who is using SCOM at the minute on site?
Oh, cool.
What's that, half? Awesome. And who is using OMS?
Messy people don't count.
Yeah. Awesome. Who's down the back? Where are you from, guys? Oh, excellent. Oh, it's education people leading the way.
Sweet.
Well done. Cool. So, the people you got up in front of the stage today, my name's Callum Lowe. I work for Microsoft New Zealand, kind of vaguely based in Wellington. I am a PFE, which is a Premier Field Engineer. So what happens is you get a Premier account with Microsoft, and then when that happens, you get access to people like me. Now, I come on site and I run workshops with people, and I help do knowledge transfer and sort through issues and that sort of thing.
Hey, my name's Darren Joyce. I'm a system engineer at Massey University. I'm also the technical lead in monitoring and insights there. My background is in business and educational IT support, and I've been doing that for over 15 years now. Massey University, my current focus at the moment is implementation and developing the SCOM platform and the implementation of OMS.
Groovy. So here's what we're going to go through today. We're going to break it into 6 rough parts, and we're going to tag team between Darren and myself. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to hear a bit about Massey University. Because this is kind of client-led, we want you to understand about Massey and actually some of the quite cool stuff that they do. It's just a bit more than art history up there. Sorry, down there. Then what we're going to do is we're going to look at Operations Management Suite. So we're actually just going to go diving into a demo and have a look at the thing. I'll call it out now. We were using, so Operations Management Suite is SaaS-based, right? It's all in the cloud. And so you need an internet connection to do this. We were just doing the setup of this thing about 15 minutes ago on the private, secure speakers network, and it didn't work. So we are running this demo off my iPhone, okay? So if there's a slight sluggish refresh on the screen, that's because it's over a 4G network in a concrete bunker in here. But just to show it can be done, I suppose. After we've done the demo, we are going to go and have a look at some case studies. And this is when it starts getting a bit cooler. Massey's been really good and been upfront and honest about showing you a bit of an insight into their site. It's all very carefully filtered, there's nothing inappropriate, but they are really decent about showing what went on for those guys, and some of the case studies are kind of funny. In the case studies we show you how we fix it as well. Then we're going to do a little bit on queries. You'll see this coming up later on, but Operations Management Suite is about taking data from your site and then putting it into the cloud and analysing it. Now there's tiles for doing that sort of stuff, but what I want to do is also show you a bit more on the queries, which is pseudo Power BI, I think. But those queries are the art of what we're doing, and that's the power that you can get out of the stuff. So I want to show you a little bit on that stuff as well. So there's a little bit of hands-on type thing. Then we're going to go through some learnings, although apparently
it's not a real word.
It's not a real word. The awesome track or something or other?
Yeah, it was a track before.
Yeah. So we found that one out this morning. Awesome. So we're going to go through our lessons in that particular module. And then we're going to go through and look at the future. And we're going to touch on this point later on. The cloud cadence, right? Everything's in the cloud, it all changes fast, and then it comes down automatically to your site. This is a good thing. This is a wonderful thing. Except when you're presenting. So yesterday, I was teasing Darren about the fact that we, being Microsoft, are going to change us at the last minute and muck our presentation round. It's exactly what happened. So yesterday they turned on some new stuff. We turned on some new stuff, and it changed how we do things. So if any of you are familiar with OMS in any capacity, we can now do not only log stuff in the cloud, we can now do performance stuff in the cloud. So we can start taking your perfmon counters, putting them up in the cloud and getting little squiggly lines and things, which is awesome for your diagnostics. And it's really easy too. Oh.
Cool, right. So, if any of you went to Steve Clayton's session yesterday on storytelling, then you'll understand that I'm going to follow his lead. And I'm going to take you on a journey and tell you a story about Massey and its road with OMS. If you didn't see his session, then definitely check it out on Channel 9 when it gets uploaded. So let's start with a bit about us. As the name suggests, we're a tertiary education provider, and we've got several campuses around the country. We have our Innovation Campus in Auckland, our Creative Campus in Wellington, and we can't forget about our campus in Student City, Palmerston North. Our IT infrastructure supports around 30,000 students and around 3,500 staff spread across these campuses. The core of our IT support we handle out of Palmerston North, and that's where our service desk, infrastructure, security and networking teams are based out of. We have over 1,000 on-premise physical and virtual servers, with around 500 of these being production, as in not dev test or UAT. Predominantly, we use Microsoft Windows as our server OS, but around 10% of our fleet is Red Hat Linux, and those handle critical parts of our infrastructure, such as DNS, DHCP, our campus library system, and our student learning management system, Stream. We spread these servers over 6 data centers across these campuses. Some of them are in a dedicated room, some in an underground dungeon. We even keep one in a shipping container, just for some extra portability. So, does this situation look familiar to anyone? Is this how your users communicate to you? Or is it how you feel like communicating to your users on some days? Like many organisations, Massey IT Services has traditionally been a reactive IT shop, a break-fix approach to support. Proactive support was a term that was bandied around amongst staff, a nirvana we all wanted, but we had no clear collective direction on how to achieve this. The quickest way to find out if something was broken was waiting until a user phoned us, not the best way to be proactive. But it wasn't all bad. We did have some tools and monitoring software engineers had self-implemented. Those helped immensely. But what it did cause was a case of tool sprawl. We ended up with multiple tools doing overlapping tasks and no direction on what we wanted to achieve. We even utilised the Palmerston North City Council call centre as a resource, and they would actually get a human to go to our website and check it's working and try and log into it. Just a bit manual. But with all these tools that self-implemented, we still had the customer or the end user being the ultimate tool at telling us when something was broken. We found decisions on infrastructure changes, such as adding or removing resources, had sometimes an almost emotional component. Decisions were made on anecdotal evidence, and that was just wrapped up with bits of information gathered from a vast array of tools. There just seemed to be a lack of consistency. But all that is history. That's where we've come from, a long history I've condensed down into a couple of slides. And I've probably made it sound a lot grimmer than what it really is. But we do have a great team who are doing an absolutely fantastic job at keeping things running. But anyway, we wanted to shift our focus. We wanted to move IT from being all about IT services and the engineers and make it more about the user, to become more customer-centric and proactive. So what's a good definition of proactive? Proactive is preventing problems from occurring. Personally, I like to think of it as fix before anyone notices there's a problem. We wanted to change end user perception of us and get some real tangible numbers onto how our infrastructure was functioning. And we wanted to change that end user perception of things are broken again, blame ITS, and improve their user experience and how they talk to us and interact. So in 2013, we started to implement the System Center Operations Manager, also known as SCOM. And this helped us to start build our proactive nirvana, what we all wanted. It became the centerpiece to monitoring all our servers and our services. Engineers now were able to get automated alerts sent to them. System statuses were displayed on big dashboards and screens, and we can get on top of issues before they impact users. Most of the time anyway. But a SCOM road, that's another story for another time. So let's move on. Proactive monitoring isn't all about alerts, dashboards, flashy blinky lights, and testing if something is working or not. We wanted a better insight into our systems. We wanted to look deeper into our infrastructure. Doing so would help us in lots of ways, such as post-incident analysis and understanding why something happened. But we also wanted to see trends or patterns in our logs for both infrastructure and for security. Are we getting a high rate of failed logons? Is there a high number of repeated event IDs? Why is this happening? Or is it just a suspicious lack of errors? Any of this can help tell a story. But we wanted a way to do it that's easy to implement and to maintain, and it has to be simple to get information out. Not just rows and rows of raw data spat out of a command line, but we also want non-engineers to be able to do this and analyze the data. Also want to be able to visualize it and drill down into it very, very easily. But I guess on top of all these wants, we still wonder what else could be lurking away in that infrastructure. We had no in-depth log analysis product. We did capture logs from our domain controllers and we uploaded those to an on-premise syslog server, along with our Linux server logs. Engineers could use whatever tools they prefer to analyze and go through this data, be it the humble Notepad, for fantastic multi-tool Microsoft Excel. But the usual winner of the day was grep. Now grep is awesome. Engineers love it. You can have some real geeky fun with grep, and it's got its place. With our DC logs taking up to 10 gigabytes per day, running a complex grep can take some time. We started looking at System Center Advisor in 2014 and decided to be an early adopter and trial it. This product eventually grew up to become known as Microsoft Operations Management Suite. Do you want to show a bit of a demo on it?
Wait, yeah. Let's have a play.
Yeah, let's have a play. Let's take a look at it.
So we're engineers, we're not presenters, so we play with stuff, that's what we do. And we're paid for it, which is we get paid to do this living. Right, so Darren mentioned it, started off as advisor, turned into operational insights, and then very quickly after that we renamed it to Operations Management Suite. If you go searching on the internet, you'll probably find lots of stuff on operational insights, and the OMS stuff, Operations Management Suite, is sort of growing a little bit. I think we're just going to have a quick look at how you log in. Pretty much all you got to do, no great shakes, Microsoft.com, OMS type stuff. I've got a cold, by the way, so excuse me if I cough. So that's your login. Once you go to your login screen, you come up with this look and feel here. Now you've seen this in some of the demos before. I think Eamon O'Reilly showed it a couple times now, and someone else as well. When you come in, this screen here, you can't really change what you get. You can go and add in a solution pack, and as you add each solution pack, you're going to get a tile turn up, which is really cool. The solution packs are added in through the solution gallery. But what I want to do is just show you one of these things. Now the idea with the GUI is it's nice and simple. When you go and add in the AD solution pack, you go and get all this information turn up. You can't change this. You get what you're given. The idea to keep it simple and achievable and get a quick win. Who's had a wrap as a service done, just out of curiosity? Well, hey, some of you have seen the light. Awesome. So the wrap as a service is where Microsoft comes on site and we go and inspect the health of something. We tell you where you're at and how to go forward. They're a little bit brutal to receive, I think. Some of the feedback is quite detailed, but it is a good thing. It helps you lift your game and all that sort of carry on. This is kind of like a wrap as a service light, like a health check if you like. So if you've got a Microsoft monitoring agent on some servers out there, the data comes back into OMS and we go and analyse it and we give you some feedback, which is really quite cool because it goes and tells you lots of stuff that you didn't know about. Apparently I need extra global catalogue service. This is my lab, by the way. This is just all one box wonders squished into one little place in Azure. But as you click on something, you then go and get a whole bunch of information posted up about what you can do about it. So you've got a nice resolution, a nice, really good way forward. And that's kind of the premise of the solution packs. A little bit of stuff, kind of like a management pack actually for those SCOM people out there, that goes down, collects data, pokes it back up in the cloud, and gives you some cutesy pie stuff to look at. AD assessment's a good place to start. System update assessment keeps you, looking at a config manager guy there, keeps your config manager guys nice and honest. So if you go and use a system update assessment, it goes and tells you what security patches are installed, or not installed rather, the required versus critical and all of that sort of stuff. So again, you know, it's the same idea. You put the solution pack in, you get some nice graphics which tell you some stuff. But in this one, we're starting to get into more the guts of the product, which is the queries. So while you can't change the tiles and the cutesy pie stuff, you can definitely change the queries. And this is what you're expected to be playing with. And so that's the power. You're taking an enormous amount of data, putting it into a store in Azure, and then analysing it. And it's easy analysis. It's not scary stuff that, you know, only SQL DBAs can do. He's just looking at a SQL DBA over there. Right, so that's a rough idea of what a solution pack is. So what we can do is when you go and create your OMS workspace, you only get log search by default. But you come into the product, you want to go and add some in. You want to go shopping, basically. So you go shopping in the solutions gallery. And if we have a look, we can see all the different types of things that we have. There's quite a wee nice number in there. Some really cool stuff. Now, we are going to talk about the stuff that Massey really used. So we're not trying to go through every single one of these things, because I've done that before and that'd be the whole hour. We just want to keep it relevant to Massey, or how Massey won. Which actually we're going to park that and come back to it in a little bit. That's kind of what I want to talk about for that, I think. Does that sound groovy? Yep, that sounds cool. Right, so let's go back to the... Any questions on that, by the way? Feel free to ask questions during the presentation. If you're lucky, you can dip your hand in that swag bag down there and find something cool. Alrighty. So that's the 2-second tour of that. We're going to have a play with that in a little bit and get our hands dirty, because that's what we do. Alright, so you've kind of had a little bit of a look at the tiles and stuff like that. What I want to do now, because we're engineers, we've got to piece it together and make it happen, right? So I want to show you how the data gets into the back end. Now, the first and the easiest way to do stuff is you can just go and install a Microsoft monitoring agent on a server that you want to monitor. So probably you're cautious technicians, you don't want to go slapping it into prod direct, so you've got a lab somewhere. You get your VM, you install the Microsoft monitoring agent on top of that, you point it at OMS, and Bob's your uncle, it will start collecting according to whatever solution packs you've set up. So that's all you have to do, one by one basis on your servers to get information sent up to the cloud. That's the first way. The second way, which is probably the most common, I think, is for those of you with a SCOM infrastructure, all you have to do is put a connector in between one management server and OMS. So your existing SCOM agents doing all their existing SCOM stuff can stay there and be left alone. They still talk to your management group and all that, so we leave the SCOM infrastructure alone. We just put one connector in between the management server and OMS. And then we define which computers and groups we want to have information sent up from. And that's all you've got to do to set that up. Now, there is a couple of benefits with SCOM. If you put SCOM in the middle of your RMS, you can actually manipulate the data collections a little bit and a few things like that. It's a beneficial thing. It's not essential. It's just one of those things. You don't have to have SCOM to do OMS, which kind of terrifies the SCOM guys a wee bit. And the new way as well, So the first two solutions, the direct agent and the SCOM connector, they're both IaaS, so infrastructure as a service, but we're doing monitoring with PaaS as well, platform as a service. So if you've got web and worker roles, if you use Windows Azure Diagnostics and a storage account, you can poke that information up as well. And there's some other slides and things which we didn't use which talk about other clouds, but basically we're trying to have this as an engine which all the data comes into, which you can analyse. And the guys are trying to remove all the bottlenecks from data sources. So we're going to assimilate everything. It's kind of like the Borg. We want to assimilate everything. Once information goes into OMS, it gets nice and safely stored in Azure storage. So it's all safely segregated off. Now the data is encrypted in transit and it's encrypted at storage as well. So your stuff suffers as safe as houses. They take it we're kind of paranoid about that at Microsoft. And then you've got a portal across the top of that as well. So it's nice and easy to get your information put in there. Right. Last thing I want to do for this tiny little thing here, I just want to give you a kind of, we call them go-dos, right? This is how you can go and do this thing, because I want to give you guys a way to set it up. In fact, I was going to issue a challenge to see if you could set it up before the session's finished. It's that easy, it's not hard. The first thing I've done is give you guys a link. I've set up an AKAMS, so like an alias to this, and this is a PDF which has all the setup instructions. It's a couple of pages, it covers all the scenarios. You follow that, you can get OMS set up. It's really easy. So you basically set up the workspace, you go and put your solution packs in. What do we do then? We set up the agents, whether it's direct or via SCOM, and you're collecting. That's it. At that point, you can log in and go and have a look. Now, the one thing we haven't talked about, and we're not going to talk about it apart from this particular point here, is that you don't have to have an Azure subscription to use OMS. All right? It's not mandatory. Azure is basically a bunch of cloud services. Operational Insights is actually mentioned in there, even though we call it OMS, they haven't renamed it yet. So you can actually link into OMS through your Azure subscription, and you can change things. So you can change the plan that you use. By default, your data goes up. You get 500 meg a day and 7-day retention, I think it is. You can make that unlimited uploads and 1 month or 1 year by going through your Azure subscription and just changing it. But you don't have to do that, it's optional. And of course, the other thing as well is you don't have to pay for OMS if you do the 500 meg per day with a 7-day retention, because that's free. And if you want to play with Azure, you can get the 1 month trial as well. I think you just get a Windows Live ID and they specify some information. And if you're crafty, you can change your billing address every time and get a free month trial in perpetuity.
Right, so let's continue our story and we'll look at some initial wins we've had with OMS at Massey Uni. And then Callum's going to give you a demo to give you a bit of an idea of what it's like to interact with OMS. We are using a demo environment. Unfortunately, we can't really use messes.
No,
no.
Not that nice.
But yeah, go nuts.
Cool. Right, what am I doing?
Press your button.
Why am I pressing my button? Okay, I've lost the plot.
Oh, sorry, it was me. My bad.
Oh, that's all right.
Yep.
You want to go back to press the button your way?
Cool.
There we go. You're up.
Cool. Right. During the early days of OMS, we only had a few servers loaded in. And I was doing an intro presentation of OMS to our security team. So I'm pretty much just trying to sell them on the product and, hey, this is cool, and trying to justify my own job as well. So during this demo...
His boss is just sitting there, by the way.
So during this, I executed one of the basic inbuilt queries as a demo. Straight away, and this was totally unplanned during this presentation to them, they could see results on failed login attempts on our Exchange server. And this was in a nice, easy to read visual layout, no explanation really needed. So I left them to investigate as a self-learning exercise. And one of the security engineers got hold of OMS and started digging into it. What he found when he started drilling down into results was approximately 1.5 million failed logins over a very short time period. The big question now is this a hack attempt? Is someone trying to get into our mail server? Or have we got an internal problem going on we weren't aware of? For OMS data gave us more information to help us diagnose the source of an issue. Firstly, we found the username didn't actually exist to start off with. So we weren't getting a problem as such as a user calling up and complaining of account lockouts or screaming at us on a phone. So if it was a brute force hack attempt, maybe we should look at trying to block this somehow. So utilising the OMS data, we tracked the source, and it turned out to be coming from another university network.
What university is that?
They might be here today, I'm not going to say. Yeah, and they weren't trying to hack in at all. It just turned out to be an ex-Massey staff member who still had a mail account configured on his MacBook, which he took when he left Massey. So we gave him a yell. He was probably a bit surprised to hear from ITS after a year or two. And we helped him with a bit of reconfiguration. But the main point is this could have easily been a hack attempt. So by analysing the logs, we could start to see a repeated pattern of failed logins occurring. So how was this achieved in OMS? This is where Callum's going to walk us through it.
We're not anti-Mac, by the way. He says that seriously. At the risk of my performance review, we're demoing on a Mac today.
It is running Windows 10.
Oh yeah, Windows 10 on a Mac, yeah. And we've got an Android phone up here as well. What else could we run?
I don't know, got an iPhone?
Yeah. I've lost the plot completely. All right, so what we're doing is we're going to go and do the real stuff now, because we're geeks. Actually, who's a geek and who's a manager? Who's an engineer? Well, hey, who's a manager?
Hey,
God, love me.
We outnumber the managers. This is going to be good.
It's a revolution. Oh, that's awesome. Sorry, managers, you're people too. Right, so. I didn't get a good performance.
I think you've just cost me a pay rise.
No, I think you'll be fine. I'm lowering the standards. I've completely lost the plot. Oh yeah, so we were doing, this is why I wrote a script, by the way. I run workshops and I talk a lot for a living, and we go all over the show. But in this particular presentation, we have to be more structured, which is a little bit odd. Right, so what we did was we went shopping. Security and audit is what really came through for these guys. And I like it because it's awesome fun. If I was going to be putting a direct agent install anywhere, I'd start with a DC. And I know that probably some of you guys having kittens right now, but DCs are important. And what they do is paramount to the business. Right. And we're running the Wi-Fi over an iPhone. Excellent. So we go in and we click on this thing. And first of all, you go and just see what presents itself. And in this particular case here, is that read all right? Yeah. We had a look at failed logins. So it was just simply a case of clicking on that and coming into the log search facility. So the tiles just go and access it through. Now in this particular case, we've loaded up the lab, so it's got something which is a bit rubbishy, but which it stands out, but it's rubbish data. In Massey's case, I think that blue line
was sort of off the chart.
It was just off the chart. Yeah. It was the size of this wall. You know, there was one like that, and then the next one was like that. So obviously there was a problem. You followed the big numbers, and that's pretty much all we did for that. You can go and get a bit more exact. It's, you know, saying good old Microsoft, they pay my salary, but you know, you go and click on stuff and you follow your nose, follow big numbers, look at details, all that sort of thing. And then Bob's your uncle. There's the particular event. And this user, whoever it was, would have had their name featured with all this 1.5 million logins every 12 hours, I think it was.
It was quite often.
Was it 12 hours?
I think it was something like 24, 48 hours. It was a very, very short period of time.
Yeah.
It was just
hammering. And that's all we had to do for that. What's worth noting though is when you go and you click on the tiles and the cutesy pie stuff, it actually shows you the query. So you can go and copy and paste that query and fix it up to suit your needs. Oh, back to you now.
That's good. No.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool. We'll look at another case. Case of the noisy domain controller logs. This was another early win we had. First of all, you've got to understand, DC logs are very, very noisy. We log everything, such as user logons, user logoffs, print jobs, group membership changes, who last changed a filter in the coffee machine. Everything is in there. And we've always assumed it was normal, an aspect of our environment. As a result, though, our security logs tend to wrap every 20 or 30 minutes. So it's quite a lot of data getting hammered into there. If we crank up Event Viewer and take a casual look, everything looks normal. Nothing really screams out at you that there is a problem going on. So as an early test run of OMS, we took a peek into these domain controllers a bit deeper. We decided to count the number of event IDs and return the results visually. In this case, we saw around 2.5 million entries across 2 users for event ID 4776. And I'm guessing most of you don't know that event ID off the top of your head. So it is the domain controller failed to validate credentials for an account. So what other clues could we find about this? We drilled down deeper and we found a field called status code. And this gave us a bit more idea. It turned out to be the correct username in this case, but an incorrect password. The OMS data also gave us more information, such as, of course, the username and the workstation details where it was occurring from. What we found in this case, it was some misconfigured iMacs, not picking on Apple.
I got my performance bonus.
Misconfigured iMacs, and they were hitting the domain controller really, really aggressively. So we contacted those users, gave them a bit of education on Apple, iMac, and other things. Anyway, from a user's perspective, we got proactive. We got ahead of a problem before it became a problem for them. But what it did do is it highlighted a potential issue we had in our infrastructure, and as a result, we changed our account lockout policy and refined it more based on these results.
And here's how we found that.
Show us how we do it.
Right. So we went back to security and audit, because that came through for us last time, and we stick to good things. Right. Cool, so security and audit. And in this particular case here, we decided to leave the easy pie stuff. We wanted to push the limits a bit. So we went and clicked on all security activities. Now, as you can imagine, when you do that for your fleet, you're going to get a lot of stuff. The results are returned. Oh, that was returned quick. Hey, rock on. So when I first saw the demo of this thing, there's a guy in Redmond doing it and all that. He had 16.5 million records, and the return time was, I think, 4 seconds or 8 seconds. So it's not too dependent on the size of your data, so you can get the results back nice and groovy and quick. So we went and had this, which is cool, but it's still too much information. So if you come down the side down here, you can start isolating it down. Gosh, I've got a lot of things. So we isolated it down. So we want to just choose one DC, just because we were shopping, which narrows it down a bit more, but still not quite enough. So in this particular case here, I think, if I'm reading my demo right, we went and did this. And this is something you're going to type a lot once you start playing. Measure count, that's a word I don't want to mistype, by event ID. And then all of a sudden, you can go and get a little shift at your numbers. Now, I know those numbers don't mean everything. You know, you're not going to automatically look at a 5061 and go, way. But you can follow the big numbers. And in fact, for security events and things, there's spreadsheets that we publish which have all the event IDs and what they mean. So a quick bit of research will find your pain. Now, in this particular case, this is really tidy. You see there's a nice even split. That wasn't quite the case for Massey again, but that's all right, a quick fix to get through it. And that's what we did for that one. And again, if you find your event ID, you go click in it, and then you get some information back. If you don't like the list, whoops, a daisy, you can go click on the table, and you get a different view and all of that sort of stuff.
Cool, let's look at another simple real-life win we've had. In this case, we had some intermittent reports from users losing access to our VPN. We had the usual user-supplied information, which is scarce. When you ask them when they lost access, you'll get vague replies, maybe a couple of weeks ago, no idea when, as users can be. So we had a quick look into our Active Directory in this case, and we saw they were being removed from the AD group controlling VPN. We could add them back in, and at some random point in time, they'll lose access again and they'll be removed. We just didn't know why this was happening and who was doing it. So we did a really quick query into OMS, and that solved it for us. We just looked simply at group membership changes. What we found in this case, it was a misconfiguration with one of our automation service account. And under very specific conditions, it would actually just randomly pick users out of a VPN group and drop them. Now we know where it's coming from, we can now bug fix it and solve the problem. Cool.
Groovy,
Yeah.
right. Let's give this a go. So they were getting more brave by this point. So they went straight for the big thing. They came into the console, they click on log search, and they go straight to where all the queries are listed, which is kind of cool. So as you load up each solution pack, you get some queries. All the queries are listed here. So if you're ever stuck, you just go and reuse IP. Right, so what we decided to do here, all the data has different types. Security event. So you can go and bring up all these security events in 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4, and a few seconds. There we go. Just out of interest, because I just thought of it. If you want to get your performance data coming up, which is the stuff that we've just started loading last night because the feature was turned on yesterday, you can just go and do it from there as well.
IS logs as well, and
yeah, it's awesome.
Just a whole range of different types.
In the resources for this, so as you can see, we've hardly got any data coming in because we've only just turned the thing on yesterday. There is, in the resources at the end of the slide deck, there's a syntax for all the stuff. So you've got like a reference which has all the ways you can run it. But that's got nothing to do with the example they did. Right, security. Security event. So they've got the security events, which is really groovy. And then, because they looked at those magic spreadsheets, they knew the event IDs they had in this, they were looking for in this case, which happens to be 4732. Oh, look, it's already there. Oh, here's that for handy. Oh, yeah, caches your stuff. So let's do that. So in this particular case here, we want it to be a security event and we wanted it to be one of 2 event IDs. By doing that, we got our hits back. Now, the number of hits here isn't quite the same as what these guys got, but you kind of get the point, right? We then go then on, click on table, and you get a slightly nicer list of what you can see. That's all they did. Nice and easy. Which means I need to flick it back to this.
Cool.
Oh, I'm still talking. Right, cool, groovy. Very laissez-faire. Right, okay, cool. So what we want to do now then is I'm going to talk about a couple of extra bits about queries. We were looking at log search, and what I want to do now is just show some extra bits about that. And this is what we're going to do. First thing I'm going to do is show you how to look in all your logs in 2 seconds for a phrase, so you can search all the logs in one go. The second thing, I want to then do a bit of a roll-up representative summary of all the data in your logs on your fleet. I want to show you a little bit about building up a query, and then about how to export the results as well. And I'm thinking we're running a bit behind time, so...
A few minutes, that's all right.
3 minutes behind.
We'll just lock the doors.
What's that?
We'll lock the doors, captive.
We'll lock the doors, yeah. So we'll talk about custom fields possibly as well. Oh, not this slide. Right, so let's have a look. Oh, I like this demo, this is a good one. If you've got a query in there and you want to get rid of the results, you just delete the query. So we want to search on something. All we have to do is type it in. That's as hard as it gets. So if you're wondering whether you've got the Conflicker virus or you've got some patchy thing going on, all you've got to do is just go in there and type the name in and it searches all your logs in one go. And that's brilliant because you can't really do that very easily at the minute with your event logs dispersed amongst your servers. Actually, that's a really good question. Who's got over 1,000 servers on their site? Ooh, quite a bit. Oh, I've got to do it now. Who's got 2,000, more than 2,000? Okay, so we're dealing, so most of us, so you're 1,000 to 1,500 kind of range. Cool, okay. So New Zealand's probably got average size, I'd say maybe 500, 800, 500, 1,000 servers, something like that. You're not going to go look at all those servers individually for stuff. So that's the first nice and easy one. The second thing I want to do is show you how to roll up information about all your logs. All I want to do is type that. And that gives you all the events that you've collected. probably going to be near 1 million, no, 258,000, which is cool. But what I want to do is then get a bit of a feel for the data, because we're trying to do some analysis. Measure count by event ID. Groovy. So now we can go and have a look across the, what's 600? And that's not expected. We can now go and have a look across the entire fleet and see what all the event stuff are doing. And this is going to be awesome for your analysis. It kind of ties in with SCOM ACS, or Audit Collection Services, as well. This analysis is actually better suited to what ACS is doing at the minute. And just because we can, because there's this whole bunch of other stuff in there, you can do the top 10 and all that sort of stuff as well, and limit it down. And then because it's a really bad list and you want to snapshot it and take a point in time, like a before and after you fix the stuff, you can then go and export the thing as well. And it just opens it up in Excel on the other screen. Whee! There we go. And so Bob's your uncle. And in fact, if you're getting really clever, you might want to go and start doing pivot tables and recommended pivot tables and things, because then it's just an export and make yourself a little pretty picture, which is good, which is management speak. Just out of interest, what is the event ID 600? Informational. Oh, is it running PowerShell or something? Oh, there you go. All right, we'll ignore that. Cool. So that's the second thing. Right, this one here is getting a bit more fun with the query. Let's blow that away. What I want to do now is I want to search across. I want to find out what all my servers have been restarted in the fleet. So I search on shutdown, which is nice and easy to do. But then I want to go in here, and what do I want to do? Add event, except my mouse has stopped working. Oh, awesome.
That wasn't a good noise.
No, that's my Bluetooth mouse, not Bluetoothing. So I do that, then I do that. There we go. I blame the preview builder Windows that I'm running. All right. Actually, I didn't want to do that. Sorry. Go back to shutdown. What I wanted to do here is show you that you've got some filtering stuff down the side down here. So when you're constructing your queries, if you don't like what you can see, you can go and add in some more stuff. And we've got all these categories of things to choose from. There's gobloads of it. And it relates back to, I suppose, event metadata, I suppose is the best way of describing it. But we're going to come into event down here. And at the moment, we've only got a little bit of information. I want to see event ID and event log. Sounds like a good thing to do. And then we'll close that down. So now, we're searching the whole fleet for shutdown. I only want to look in the system log. And as you can see, as we select stuff down here, it goes and updates the query. And I want to search on 1074, which I think is the event relating to a service restart or something. Now we've got a nice little list there, which is kind of cool, but it's not terribly useful at this point because it's still a bit unreadable. So we're now going to, as you can see, we've got all these fields here. We're going to go start selecting by them. So we do something like time generated computer. We get a list. What have I done? Hey, I wonder if I can just do this. Oh, hang on. Computer. Let's try that. Groovy, which is nice and tidy. We click on table, and then as you saw before, we go into an export. Actually, that's only in the last 7 days, but we want more. Because I've gone and paid for the, I rephrase, because Microsoft's paying for my premium plan. I've got a year's worth of data retention. So we can go custom. We can then go and change the timescale. Go back to last month, I guess. Probably a good place to go to. And then we'll get some other hits come back. Which, once they come back, we can then go and export those out. And you've got a nice little easy list of servers when they were being restarted. Dead simple thing. Oh, the reason I got so many server restarts is if you're running in Azure Lab, make sure you shut the thing down when you don't need it. It's quite common. There's a PowerShell script in the gallery. You can go shut it down at night at like 7 o'clock and start it up at 9 o'clock in the morning. Saves you a fortune. Saves Microsoft a fortune. And this is a list of when I've restarted all my servers. I'm not going to talk about custom text. So who's talking now? I'm talking. You're talking.
Cool, right. So, probably running short on time, but I guess like any journey, our story needs to include some learnings. What was the word we're going to use instead of learnings?
Lessons.
Lessons.
Lessons is a word. Learnings is not a word.
No,
officially.
we'll make it a word.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess first of all, let's talk a bit about Microsoft Rapid Release Cadence. Do you want to?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We release new stuff all the time. Really, we do. And so I think I said before, yesterday we went to release some new parts of the product, and people presenting at Tech Ready 20. There was one guy doing a SharePoint thing, and he was up half the night when they changed what he was doing on them. So I think we release stuff so that your software stays up to date, and that is a good thing. But it takes a wee bit of adjustment to get used to, because technically speaking, there'll be stuff changing on site that you didn't instigate. But that's kind of what you buy into with software as a service. It's always current, it's always up to date, it's always doing the right thing. In fact, I think that's your point, isn't it? About
so weird.
So I'll seamlessly hand over to you.
Yeah, well,
there we go.
Yeah, so I guess Rapid Cadence was really good for us. It's just the rapid release cycle. We had an issue where a couple of OMS users were complaining that every 15 minutes they'll get kicked out of OMS, bang on the 15-minute mark. It wasn't happening to me, so I've just assumed they were nuts out of all this. Doesn't affect me, I don't care. But one day I changed computers and I borrowed a laptop and I was using that, and I was actually working on my Ignite presentation at the time. And I was in OMS and 15 minutes happened and I got kicked out. And so either I'm nuts, which probably most of my co-workers think I am, or there's something else going on here. So what I did is I posted a message into Microsoft's user voice forum, which is an area in OMS you can suggest new ideas and people can vote on, and Microsoft actually listens, which is fantastic.
The guys in the program group actively monitor it and actually respond pretty well as well. So if you really want something, just pipe up, and then people vote for your idea, and the more votes, the higher the chance of the funding getting allocated. So it's not a case of us burying ourselves in the back room and coming up with what we think is a great idea. We actually want to hear from you guys.
So we had those guys in Redmond or wherever that team is located.
Redmond.
Is it Redmond? No,
I think so.
They pretty much jumped straight away on my posting, and they had a look into our OMS workspace logs, and they found out we had a bug, which existed because we started off in System Center Advisor and migrated with us through to Ops Insight to OMS. They came back to me and said, yep, found the bug. We're going to release a patch within 24 hours into your system. I was expecting a couple of weeks. This is not something I'm used to here, so nice and quick. And that's the new way of doing things. Rapid cadence, get an update out there quick as possible. Other lessons we've learned along the way was IIS logs. IIS logs, they can be shipped up to OMS. But out of the box, IIS is configured, I think, to do daily log rollover. And Microsoft recommend you change this to hourly. This is because the OMS agent actually takes the entire log and then ships it up to the cloud for processing. If there's a change, it'll take the log again and ship the entire thing up. So you can imagine what happens if you've got an 8 GB IIS log file. Minor change, a whole lot's just going to go up again. So by putting the log rollover to hourly, we're just doing it in smaller chunks. Something we learned along the way, that one. CPU overhead, that's something almost every engineer asks me whenever I want to put a server into OMS. And I guess it's a really, really hard question to answer. I found from my own experience that, well, we don't use the MMA agent, we use a SCOM agent, and we found that's had very little impact to our servers, except when there's a high rate of logs happening, such as a domain controller. Then the CPU usage is definitely higher. I've seen usually about a 5 or 10% jump. But I have also seen when you add a server first time into OMS, sometime within the first hour, there's about 5 or so minutes where the CPU does spike up to maybe 30 or 40%. I think during this time, OMS is doing some initial assessments, looking over your server and collecting data and shipping them off. To give you an idea, though, of a real-life impact, the Friday before I came to Ignite, I onboarded 40 servers, production servers, into OMS.
Under change control.
Eh?
Sorry.
Shh.
There.
No, we covered change control. Yeah, 40-odd servers went in. I guess the fact I'm standing here today, no engineers come after me with a blunt force instrument, means everything's still working okay. I may not be alive on Monday when I get back to work, though. We'll find out. So I guess what I recommend is every environment is different. Start slow, add 1 or 2 servers in, build your confidence up, see the impact to your servers, and then slowly add more until you're happy with just dumping 40 or 50 or 100 servers in at once. Exporting data. Sounds straightforward, but I found some engineers prefer just to do a generalized query and export all the data to Excel to manipulate there. And I guess if that floats your boat, no problem with doing that. But I recommend that you try and drill down your results a bit more before exporting. The number one reason is there's a 5,000 line limit on exporting to Excel. So just doing a blanket query is probably going to, well, it could in some environments go over the 5,000 line limit.
Bad query, would you?
Good queries do as well.
Don't write bad queries. She's a SQL guy over there. Yeah.
Data usage. OMS can use a lot of data. The noisier your logs are, the more data you're going to upload. And you also pay for your data that's processed in OMS. But then once you have your logs in OMS, you can then start to analyze those logs. And you can find the source of what I like to call big noise. Sort all the big noise out in your logs, and it will clean up your environment. And as a result, you'll transfer less data to the cloud.
All right, so I've got like 30 seconds. Woohoo!
Sweet.
Rock on. So this is the stuff that we want to play with going forward, right? One of them is performance collection, because that's just cool. We can then go and get data, put it in the cloud, get squiggly lines and analyze it. This is a good thing. And I think there is actually a data projected size, which is like a meg per metric per day or something. You pay a couple of bucks, I think, to get per one-off upload per gig. So you're going to spend next to nothing getting your performance data in the cloud. We have an API. So once you get the data into the cloud and it's all sitting up there, your dev guys can go for broke and they can go and start hitting this thing directly. They don't have to use the portal, they can hit the API, which is really cool. New world for Microsoft. We've got Android and iOS in our presentations. There's going to be an app coming along. I think they're both actually underway at the minute.
I think Android's getting done first, because
Android
everyone voted for Android.
Oh, did they? Heathens. No, sorry. So there is an app coming along. I've got a Windows phone somewhere, which I can't find amongst the iPhones and Android devices up here. There's an app for the Windows phone that you can get into the stuff as well. So we haven't talked about it here. Amon did. You can get your SCOM alerts to be represented in OMS. Give your manager, pointing to Harry the manager, give him an app on his Windows phone. He gets a little red thing when they get too many alerts of this, and you get some queries and stuff. So the OMS app on a Windows phone is an awesome way to roll up your SCOM opportunities. The last one as well is Linux. Crikey. So you can do some Linux monitoring. I think of the syslog traffic of the Linux VM is on Azure.
If you're using SCOM at the moment, you can get Linux logs munged up into OMS, but there's a...
It's not where it should be. It's not as easy as click a click.
No, but it's coming very, very soon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so the Linux stuff is coming along, so we're going to bring Linux into the fold.
You can do Linux in Azure though. That's there.
All right, so I'm just keeping an eye on time. So this is us. I think this presentation goes up to Channel 9, so you can go and get a copy of the content and all that stuff and our contact details, which is really groovy. I know we're tight for time, so maybe if there's any questions, we're going to be around here for a minute picking up our devices from all the different vendors. So feel free to come up the front and ask questions and steal some swag and stuff, I suppose.
Any quick questions at the moment? We can answer in 10 seconds or less. No, go for it.
Oh, you had to ask that, didn't you?
Did. Well,
it's around about a couple of bucks per gig for a one-off upload cost. Once it's there, you don't pay for storage, you just pay for the one-off upload. The tricky bit is you want to know how much data so you can project your costs. I don't have a magic answer for you. The official answer is to suck it and see.
Yeah,
I mean, if we're honest, right? That's just how you're going to work. So yes, Darren said start small. if we turned on everything for these guys,
Well, I turned 40 on last week.
Harry would not be smiling.
Yeah, I turned 40 on last week and we've had a huge spike in our data. I don't know how many exactly yet. I need to look.
I know the performance one is more accurate, but the other one is not. My recommendation for now, until we get a nice little calculator thing, start small.
Have a drink, Bob.
All right.
Any more
there's some
questions?
links. Oh.
No? You want any more questions?
I think people are wandering, so we'll
Okay.
wind up now. Got any questions, come up the front,
And have a chat.
etc.